So you always leave a 0.2 millimeter more than the last burr you use.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jenny, and I'm a part of education team at Medit. Nice to meet you, everyone. Today, we have Dr. Bogdan here.
Such a pleasure to meet you, everybody. It's going to be a new lecture with multiple sessions, so I hope you like it.
Thank you for being here, doctor. And it was your birthday last week, right?
Yes, 3 days was my birthday, yes.
How did you spend the day?
In the office.
In the
It was,
office? Oh my God.
I work from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So, but
Oh,
then it was right before the weekend, so it was then a very nice weekend. I worked and then had free time.
oh, that's better.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's talk about today's topic. So it's about digital workshop with Medit apps. So do you know that we have released Clinic Card, which is free, you know, right?
Yeah, I saw the release, and actually it was very interesting for me because as we'll also talk in the end of the webinar, it's interesting to see that we can now also mill our restorations, and we have full compensation for these restorations that we mill. The difference between additive crowns and subtractive crowns is that when you print a crown, you can actually print any minute detail in any angle. But when you mill it, you always have to take into account that a burr has to go inside the interior of the crown. And if that surface is not prepared for milling, there are going to be areas that are not perfectly milled and the crown will not sit correctly. So there is a difference between the interior of a milled and the printed crown.
Yeah. Designing a crown according to milling and printing is so different.
Yeah, actually, one takeaway message here is that if you, in my practice at least, it's that if you mill a crown and you are going, for example, to use your last burr inside the crown of 0.6 or 1 millimeter, that burr, when it gets inside the crown and mills the last details, if it is constricted in the last part of the milling, so for example, you tell the program, I'm going to mill with 1 millimeter burrs, you have to actually let the program use a 1.2 millimeter burr because the burr has to wiggle a little bit inside the crown. If it's constricted to 1 millimeter, it's not going to move there. So you always leave a 0.2 millimeter more than the last burr you use.
Oh, that's really a clinical tip.
Yeah, it's what helped me all these years.
Oh, yeah, it will be really interesting. So, okay, before we start, I want to give an announcement and then you can move on to your lecture.
Great. So regarding the digital workshops that we are today presenting, we are going to start this series with how to record data for them and also how to build the digital workshop file. And then in other webinars, I'm going to show you how to use the workshop. So first we build it, and then we're going to use it as a clinical phase inside the scanning program, and also to build different kind of appliances for it. We are going to build WhatsApp mockup models. We are going to build temps. We are going to build shells in preparation for the patient's arrival with special supports. And we are also going to use this design in the end to actually transfer the WhatsApp to the final design.
Oh.
Maybe if it's of interest, we could also build a library for that set patient. We're gonna see.
Oh, that part will also be very interesting. Okay. Dr. Bogdan has prepared a very interesting topic today. So before we begin, I have an announcement that we are going to have Q&A session right after the lecture is done. So we've already collected all the questions through the email in advance. So we will cover those questions today. And while watching the webinars, you can go to the chat box and write down any questions or feedback. And if you'd like to watch the previous webinars, you can visit our YouTube channel and official training platform, which is Medit Academy. Okay, so shall we begin, Doctor?
Yeah, sure. Let's get straight into it.
Hello everyone. Today we are going to start a series of webinars dedicated to WhatsApps, to the way we gather data, to the building of WhatsApps, to building models for WhatsApp and mockups, also for doing temps, shells, to doing definitive restorations, to also doing injection splints. And with everything said, let's just jump straight into it. So first we are going to gather data, and we start this by actually scanning our patient. We are going to scan the pre-op situation. We are going to get clear and very green data for the maxillary and mandibulary arches. Then we are going to evaluate the static occlusion. I advise that you also get your dynamic occlusion right. And then after doing so, we are going to also do photos. To be able to do correct photos of the patient, we are going to use a chair without wheels and place the patient near a wall. We are going to use an empty glove box to set the patient's head against the wall so that we minimize the movement of the said patient. And we are going to use our camera set up on a tripod. This tripod should fix the camera at the same level with the face of the patient, and the patient should not move between the retracted photo and the smile photo. The patient should be advised to look directly in the camera so that we can clearly align the photos with the eyes of the patient. Between the two photos, we are going to remove the retractor. First, I usually do the first photo with the retractor, and then without moving the patient's head, I'm going to pull out the retractor and do a second smile photo. Of course, you can also do this without the use of a camera on a tripod, but it's much harder to keep your hands very steady and on the right position. So advised is to use a camera on a tripod. For even better results, I use my face scanner, and here you can see the face scanner from Func to get a retracted and smile face scan. The face scans are not only used for smile design, but also they can be used to set up a virtual face bone, and also to generate planes that were much needed in further designs. So if you don't have one, I advise you to look into it. There are many options on the market. This is the one I use because it gives a very good precision of the scans, but you can find your own according to your budget. Now let us select the photos of the patient, one retracted as I mentioned before and one with the smile. We are going to align the photos in Smile Design. We are also going to check that the alignment is properly done by the AI tools of Medit. We are also going to adjust the smile line of the lip, as you can see here, by adding points and by moving them. And once this is done, we are going to see if the lines are generated correctly and play a little bit with them. We are going to parallelize the photo. Here I'm going to cut out the premolar since I only use a Smile Design from K9 to K9, and I'm going to select each tooth. And after selecting each tooth, I'm going to reposition the lines as needed. We can also use different smile libraries and the different shapes of teeth. We can use tools to actually mirror the teeth from one side to the other. Also, we can use the libraries of textures provided by Medit, or as you can see here, we can adjust the outlines of these teeth in the texture library generator so that we can use the textures from the photo taken by from this set patient, as you can see here, to have an even more natural result. And once we have done this, we can engage the patient with with a natural photo, as you can see here. The slider generates the before and after picture And once this is done, we are going to calibrate this picture to generate the correct ratio of the teeth. And how I tend to do this, I'm not going to measure in the mouth, but just open in MediDesign, open the maxillary scan I just taken and in the pre-op phase. And with the tools of measurement in MediDesign, I'm going to measure the width of this tooth and enter them in Smile Design. And now we are going to press the calibrate button, and the proportion and ratio of the teeth is going to be shown. Now it's time to save these photos, as you can see here, and they are going to get exported in MeditLink. Now I'm going to show you how to convert the photos that we have taken into 3D objects. So we are going to take the before and after photo and duplicate it, and we are going to save two photos out of it, one before and one after, as you can see here, by using the Photos app in Windows. And with these two photos, we are going to open the Paint app, Paint 3D app from Microsoft Windows. We are going to generate a square, a three-dimensional object, and once we have generated it, we are going to use the sticker function and place the texture on this object. For the before picture, we are going to save it as a 3D object in the particular format that Paint 3D is using. And now we are going to Ctrl-Z it, undo the image, and place the second picture in exactly the same spot on the exactly same object. And this is very important that we actually use the same object and export this as well. And with the help of the 3D Builder app, also provided free of charge by Microsoft, we are going to import these two objects that are exactly the same shape and size, and we are going to export them as OBJ formats. This OBJ format is going to be re-imported in MeditLink. As you can see here, there is a slight problem with the color of the object, but for Smile Design use as I do it, I don't need to have the exact colors, since I'm only interested in the shape of the teeth. And now these objects are going to be imported in MeditDesign, and also the maxillary is pre-op maxillary is going to be imported there. And with the 3D manipulator, we are going to rotate the photos in the desired position, both of them separately, because the manipulator only allows movement of a single object at one time. And once we have done this, we are going to check if everything is in place, as you can see now. Okay, now with the help of the manipulator tool, we are going to scale these objects. First, the previous photo of the patient, that is the left picture, and with the left picture we are going to, there was a slight problem here, so always check if they are aligned correctly one to the other. And now we are going to scale this image so that we can fit it on the teeth beneath, on the pre-op state. We are going to use it in a semi-transparent state, so we can also see the model beneath. And now we are going to pull on it, rotate it, and actually place it in the correct position to be able to work with that model. And after everything is done, we are going to actually scale the second object to the exact same, not exact, but to the same dimensions of the first one, and position it one on top of the other. Let's see. And now we have both Smile Design photos aligned to the pre-op model. But as you can see here, we did not check the position in all axes, so we are going to get back to the design, and also with the help of the manipulator tool, we are going to pull back the photo until it actually just intersects a little bit of the front teeth. Now that we have positioned the first photo, we can still manipulate it a little bit, and now we are going to get the second one to realign with the first, as you can see here. Now that everything is done, we are going to export these objects, because they are three-dimensional objects, to MeditLink to be used at a later date. The second thing we can do is to import the face scan we just did, and here you are going to see that a good face scanner provides a perfect alignment of objects between the pre-op state and the face without doing any additional work with just one point placement, and you see how green it was when aligning these two scans. Now that the face scan is aligned to the pre-op model, we are going to go one step further and actually cut the teeth from the face scan, because we don't need it anymore since the models just aligned, and delete them. And now we are going to have a clear lip curve, and underneath you are going to see the pre-op model and of the maxilla and the mandible. Now that we have both of them, we are going to export the face scan, and also we are going to merge this set face scan with the maxillary to have a pre-op state of the maxillary and the face at the same time. That is going to also get exported. In this step, I remind you that you need to also export the mandibular and the maxillary pre-ops, because using them further is only going to be possible if you have everything exported from Medit Design and not from the first scan you had. As I have mentioned in the previous slide, the pre-op states have also need also to be exported. As you can see here, we just press export to Medit link for both pre-op, op, and also mandible base. This patient needs an implant planning, a waxer from an implant planning. So let's see how we import everything in Medit CAD. We deselect the files proposed by Medit CAD, and we realign first the face smile and also the jaw, the jaw and of the maxilla and the antagonist, the mandible. We place them on the virtual articulator on the occlusal plane. And now you can see we have as a pre-op we have the smile of the patient, a three-dimensional smile, and underneath the op state, and we can start working. Or we have a second way of doing this, and let's just see how. We reopen Clinic CAD, and instead of importing the pre-op maxilla, we are going to get the face and the pre-op maxilla, also the maxilla and the antagonist. As you can see here, we place them on the occlusal surface, and after making sure they are correctly placed, we are going to get one step further, and you are going to see that we have the op state here, but also we can benefit from the pre-op that has the teeth that we had before and also the face. And here we can start working on this. So the way I do wax-ups is to actually import the pre-op of the patient, and I'm going to duplicate it so that I don't work on this to have it as a base of interpreting things. And now I'm going to select every tooth that I need. And after selecting all the teeth, I am going to go over them once again with a brush tool and make sure that the whole of the tooth is selected. As you can see here, we make sure that nothing is left out, but also that we don't get any part of the fixed gingiva. In this case, sometimes we need to deselect data, and sometimes we add data. As you can see here, we make sure that everything is nice and clean. This is going to help us a lot in the next part of filling what we cut out now. We also go on the palatal surfaces, get everything. This is very important to be done right, so get the appropriate amount of time needed to do everything here correctly. After things are almost done now, we have just the last canine to work on the palatal surface. And now that we have done this, just please orient the model one more time, and we are going to delete this data. We are going to erase everything, and you will see how important it is to actually see that everything got out clean. Now we are going to bridge everything together from the tips of the papillae. After we have done this, we are going to close the holes and let the program do its thing. We never close with color because we want to make sure that we know where we cut the teeth out, because this is going to give us the margin line of the future wax up. And now subtractive, we are just going to remodel the mesial portions of the back teeth. And now we are going to shape the virtual post extractions that we just done. We can do this by using the morph tool and pull down on the model, as you can see here. And after we do this for every socket, we are going to make sure smooth things out. Never use the tools that we use on the models, never use them on the gingiva at the sides of the extraction sockets. As you can see here, we try to be as precise as possible. Now we are going to export the cut model we just generated, and but before this we are going to duplicate it one more time, and the second cut model that we just got, we are going to pull on the extraction sockets a little more down, and or use the subtractive tool. And we are going to have two models, one with the shape of the extraction sockets and one with this shape a little bit more pronunciated. This is very important, so please do both steps. We are just checking if we have a little difference between them. Now we are going to export both models, and as you can see, we also can rename these models, and everything is going to be exported. Every model is going to be exported to from MediDesign to MeditLink. Just to explain one more time what we did before. So first we are cutting the teeth out and generating a model with virtual extraction sites, because the wax up that we are generating is going to get merged to this model, and we are going to use Boolean functions to do this Boolean merge. This function only works well when the two models intersect. So this is why we are going to use the model with deeper pockets. We are going to design on that, and after we are finished with the data, we are going to merge the wax up with a second model with shallower pockets. Also, we are closing the model holes with the lack of color, with gray color, so that we are going to be able to see where the outline of the teeth started from and where we did the virtual extractions, so that we generate teeth with the exact position as the previous extracted teeth at the margin line. And from there on out, we can we can do another geometry of the meshes. With these things explained, let us just start Medit Clinic CAD, and we are going to use the workflow prepared data. We are going to import the models from MeditDesign, the ones with deeper extraction pockets, and we are going to start placing the margin line. It is very important in this step to actually get the margin line along the gray area of the extraction sockets, as you can see here. Please take your time with this step and do it as well as possible, because when generating the teeth, after placing the proper position of teeth from the Medit library, they are going to get pulled to this margin line that we are just placing now, and we want to have this margin line at the emergence of the actual real teeth. So this is also why when doing the virtual extraction techniques, we need to not modify the area that surrounds the gray spots. So always take that, be careful how you manage this data, how you subtract and morph it. Now that the margin line is almost placed, we are just going to see how this happens. So we go fast, we just place it and then pull on the margins at points where they are needed, or delete if this also is the case. But it is very important, as you can see here, even if it is on fast forward, to get it right and in the correct position. The bridge tool that we used before does not have the ability to place gray lines. Maybe Medit will help with this in the future, but right now this is going to be, bridges are going to be in the color of the model. And also here it is very important, in the previous step is very important to actually smooth and cut out the generated gray surface from the mesial parts of the teeth in the back. Now the program is going to first generate an insertion path, and we are going to use a bridge insertion path or common insertion. Try and get it so that it actually allows the fitment of this virtual bridge between the mesial parts of the posterior teeth. Now we are going to place the teeth and we are going to position them as close as the margin line is possible. We are going to scale them and rotate them, scaling by using the shift key and rotating. Do remember to use the shortcuts. It's going to be much easier for you to place because these shortcuts allow rotation and scaling, and by pulling on the teeth with a left mouse button. We can also in this step use multiple libraries because Medit is integrating more and more libraries at this step. And they also have a very nice tutorial on Medit Academy on how we are able to build our own library if needed. As you can see here, we use multiple viewing points to be able to place our wax up in the correct position. Try and be as thorough as possible, and if you can also respect the margin line, you are going to have an easier time when in the next step. But if not, the teeth are still adjustable. Also in this step you can see that we are using a grid beneath that is going to help us with the positioning of the teeth. It would have been much easier to have custom view angles, but since we don't do this, we are going to manage the situation, as you can see here, by always dragging the model around and changing the viewing axis. Now that we are almost done, we are going to jump in the next step. And in this next step, we are going to use the already placed crowns to modify them. As you can see, after the crowns are, the teeth are placed on the model, when jumping to this step, the program pulls on the crown edges to actually adjust them to the margin line that we just generated in the step before. And now we are going to need to actually smooth out the error that the program gives when pulling on the margins and building nicer teeth. We are also going to add and remove material and morph the teeth in the correct position. Now we can also adjust the shapes and the geometry of the models in a more correct manner. Here we are going to be also able to generate contact points with the antagonist. We are going to be able to modify the suggested library by adding grooves to teeth or pulling on the angles, as you can see here. Also, teeth are selectable and also deselectable so that we can actually see the tooth we are working on without the interference of the crowns that are on both sides of the set tooth, and we can do this with every single tooth that we are working on. Take your time and build a beautiful outcome here, because this is the last step in your WhatsApp procedure that allows modification of these shapes. As you can see, we have 5 tools at our disposal. The number 1 adds material, the second subtracts material, the third smoothes the shapes out, fourth is going to let you pull on margins in any direction you need to, and the last one is just recently have been introduced, the fifth one, that actually allows to design very small details on the surface and actually subtractive. You are going to be able to cut with it very small details. Now we are actually nearing the completion of this model, and also here we can see how the final shapes of these teeth actually tend to get done. Now on the palatal, we are going to go on the palatal surface of these teeth and start building the contacts that we need. If you also have a dynamic model generated, you can use that as well to generate also dynamic movement of your WhatsApp. And this is done by actually, instead of importing the antagonist as a static object, we import the intersection model that the dynamic function generates. If you want to use that, because we can't exchange models in Medit Clinic CAD, I suggest that you actually do a full model of all movements of the patient and import that as your antagonist. We have a little bit more of work to do, but we are getting there. We thicken the surfaces so that we have contacts where we need them to be. Now that everything is done and we have contacts, the next thing will be, after checking that we have gotten to the desired outcome, to use the distance to antagonist cut. I usually cut them to 0.1, but you can cut these models and the contacts to the antagonist to whatever value you like. So this is just my selected value. You can cut them to 0 to from 0 to 0.2 actually. Now that the crowns have been placed and morphed in the correct position, you can add connectors to this bridge to be used as a single piece. You can also use your design without connectors if you assign this model, this WhatsApp creation as single crowns and not a bridge. You will not have this connector part here. If you have it and you need it, my suggestion to you is to first pull the connectors in a more proper position, and after doing this, to adjust the connectors by pulling on their points in the second step. Do remember that these connectors, if used as a bridge, need a proper surface. So your surface should never get below 9 square millimeters in the front area, in the 11 millimeters in the back. You can see here as we how we modify these connectors and pull them back. These connectors, if left unchanged, are going to modify the surfaces between the teeth and in the visible part, and this is not advisable because this is going to not give a very nice smile design. So we are pulling the connectors back to the palate. When we do this and morph the connectors in the new position, do bear in mind that these connectors can also modify the contacts that you generated, so you should also check this in the last part to not have new contacts. As you can see, we are almost done. I want to have thicker connectors at the base and thinner at the incisal part. We'll check them from every angle. And when we are done and press complete, they are going to get merged in the final design. So this is the outcome of our WhatsApp, as you can see here. In the next webinar, we are going to learn how to use this WhatsApp to build other models, and how we are going to use this WhatsApp also in the scanning app to measure our thicknesses and the needed preparations. We can also use this WhatsApp to maintain the old contacts that we had before in the pre-op, or also we can use it as an additive or subtractive WhatsApp. So there are many ways to go from this point on. So we are going to see each other in the next webinar and explain everything. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you for sharing all your tips with us, Doctor.
It was my pleasure to be here as usual. It's such a great honor to be able to do these webinars with you.
Okay, so we have 4 questions total today. So I'm gonna start with the first question. Question number 1. In which aspect do you think it is preferable to perform a digital wax-up compared to the conventional wax-up?
So in my clinical practice, I am only working digital for so many years now. I know that there are still practitioners in the world that prefer traditional wax-up. In traditional wax-ups, there are some advantages. If you pour a model and then you're going to do a wax-up solution on it, the practitioner can then first manipulate that wax-up when it gets into the clinic. But on the other hand, you can also do this by adding flow material, so no need to go there anymore. Also, printing units or printers are so precise these days that I don't feel you get more of a precision or more detail by using your hands. My recommendation is always do it digitally, because after you do a digital wax-up and you print your model, you are going to be able to integrate that said wax-up in your further workflow much more easily than if you do it manually. So I prefer digital workflows always over the traditional workflows.
And Medit CAD app is here to help you to go to digital wax-up.
That was such a great revolution for me, because from version to version, as we'll talk about, you have more and more possibilities with Medit Clinic CAD. And we also have our great team at Medit that always answers our questions and our needs. So it grows so fast and nice, and it's also free. I don't see any reason not to go there.
Thank you. Okay, so next question. Question number 2. Is there any consideration when designing a crown when I want to do model-less treatment?
Yeah, from my point of view, if you do a model-less workflow, you should never use model-less workflows on new machines you get. So I use a mill for many years now, and I also do printing, but I got my new printer some months ago, and I had some problems until I adjusted the workflow. Every printer has different offsets, different values that you have to use. Also, the mills have this. So until you are prepared to and validated your values, you still have to print your models to check if everything is fine. Once you have found the correct values for your workflow, I would never go to models again. Only reason to do models nowadays for me is if I want to get ceramics on top of zirconia restoration, and the lab would do that. But any other way, I would only work model-less.
So you recommend to go with the model and then move on to model-less later on?
When you see that the crown fits perfectly on the abutment, that the mesial and distal contacts are correct, that the occlusal offset is good, because this is also a problem with milling. Sometimes you have the perfect offset already in the Medit scanning app, but with printing, because surfaces can inflate with the use of isopropylic alcohol because the support pins can pull on the surface.
Mhm.
You have different values of offsets on the occlusal side. So after you have calibrated all these values for your machine, then you are going to be able to always use Modelings.
Okay, thank you. Okay, question number 3. Which of the functions in Medit's Clinic CAD app do you find the most useful to use in the clinic?
Well, in the past, I would probably have given a different answer, but right now, these days, my best feature is the tool compensation feature, because I always wanted to be able to also mill my restorations. And now I am able to do it because of this tool compensation you just introduced in the Medit Clinical.
Okay. Okay, so last question. Question number 4. I'm curious about your workflow for restoring a crown to patients on the same day.
We have two different ways of doing it. One is the milled version and one is the printed version. In the last month, I switched more and more to printed versions, because on single crowns, the material are already good enough. I use the Sprintrate Vigo material and some others, and the results are very nice, very aesthetic, and the crowns have on the composite side of things, when I mill composite, because the crown is inert, disc is inert as chemistry goes. On the printer, there are still traces of monomer inside, so they bond much better on teeth than the milled ones. On the milled part of things, we do Emax, so also it's very very interesting and a very good material. And everything nowadays is actually done in around 10 minutes per crown. So after you do your crown, you just pull it off the supports or cut it out of the disc of the pack of Emax, and you just individualize it for a little bit. And actually in around, I don't know, 30 to 40 minutes after you've done the scan, you actually have your done restoration. So it's very fast, very easy. The ROI is very good. And I really love this kind of works where you do the crown in the same day as you get the patient in.
You mean it takes 30 to 40 minutes to restore a single crown after scanning?
After scanning, yeah, it's going to be very fast. If you want to get into it, for example, for printing, I print with the crown kit from Sprintrate, which is the best printer I've ever used. I print it in around 10 to 12 minutes crown. I wash it, then I take it off. I wash it in not more than 3 minutes. This is the recommended value from Vigo in 2 EPA settings. Then afterwards, I'm just gonna polymerize it, and in the cure unit, that is 1 minute and 40 seconds. And then individualizing is not going to take me more than 5 minutes tops. So then everything is done and you just cement that unit. The nice part here is that the anesthetic is not even wearing off at the speed you do everything.
Oh, wow. It was really interesting to hear that how long it really takes, the time and the workflow, everything.
So it's always under an hour from scanning to actually finalizing your cementation, everything. Because if the values are introduced correctly, you're not going to have any problems mesially, distally, occlusally, everything is just fine. You just put it in with some cement. It actually sometimes takes longer to isolate with a rubber dam than it takes to cement this crown.
Okay. That's all about it for today. So you'll be able to watch this webinar on our YouTube channel and Medit Academy once it's completed. Thank you for being here, Dr. Bogdan.
Thank you so much for having me again, and I hope to see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.